right, welcome to Deals and Deadlines, your sports business podcast with super agent Hadley Engelhardt. I'm Matt Chernoff. Thanks so much for making us a part of your day. I'll remind you, if you're new to the pod, thanks for finding us. You can subscribe on any podcast platform. Each new episode comes out on Fridays, and you can always watch us on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. All right, Hadley, we got
At your leisure.
At your leisure. It's always a good way to do it. We got a lot to cover, including some mandatory OTA stuff with the NFL that I want to get into this week. But let's start with NIL as the continuing business model of college sports changes. So we have a new NIL enforcement entity in college sports, and it's not the NCAA. Forget about them. They completely are irrelevant at this point. The newly created College Sports Commission will enforce the terms of the House versus the NCAA settlement and now run the new NIL clearinghouse. So tell me what you understand to be now this new commission and how they're going to enforce what's going to happen with NIL.
Well, there's actually an appeal currently going on that deals with Title IX. So for everyone listening for the first time or not aware of what's happening, there's been a lawsuit that's been going on involving payment to players. The judge finally signed off on that settlement. Each team roughly has about $21 million, the Power Four conference teams. They can divvy that money up as they want. Now there's the governing of the NIL, which is now separate from this, because now players are going to be paid from the universities.
As employees.
They're not employees directly.
We're trending towards
Correct. We're trending that because they're still not officially employees because there's workers' comp issues. There's other logistics that.
What a lawyer.
Correct. But you are correct. In theory, we can consider them for conversation purposes as employees. They're going to be paid directly from the university. But it's at their decision on how much they want to pay, how much they want to give to a particular program versus other programs. And this is where this new litigation, which will be the first of many more litigations, is Title IX related because of the equality of men's sports versus women's sports. So put that aside right now. Now you talk about true NIL, name, image, and likeness. There is going to be a separate governing body that is run by Deloitte, is one of the entities, that is going to determine the fair market value of athletes to determine what they're worth, whether they're being paid appropriately or they're being overpaid. But the old adage is, if someone's willing to pay it, that's the fair market value. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they handle this in determining what is fair market value. And once they set the bar is going to be set. So other people can come in and say, well, I'm worth this because this guy got that or this girl got that. So it's the first of many things that are going to happen. There's going to be many lawsuits, I believe, that start with this. And the interesting thing about this new litigation going on with Title IX, they're pausing the back payment.
Right.
People that were owed in the past. I'm living that. My son was a Division I athlete during this period, so he is part of this litigation. However, the current players, men and women that are on rosters, are still going to get paid, and that's not going to be delayed at all. But you're going to have a governing body that's going to oversee it, and there are people, Major League Baseball is bringing somebody in to oversee the baseball money. There's a lot of people involved, and it's going to be very interesting to see. This conversation is not the last one.
No, it's what we've said, though. It's everything's happening backwards, right? Had we done this the right way at the beginning and had governors and guardrails, it would have made this a little bit easier. So you've got that going on. And then we've got this big part of sports now where private equity. We're seeing this now in professional sports where leagues are now allowing teams to sell off portions of their ownership to private equity. Well, it's now entering college football. So Boise State University is actively considering bringing private equity into its athletic department. So I know what it looks like in the NFL, right? In the NBA, where it's like, all right, here's 2% for your $22 million, whatever the deal is. How does it work? How do we come up with the value to have private equity running some sort of the show in college football?
Well, I think each team, each university is going to declare their own value, but it's not going to affect the payment to the players as much. Because now that the settlement has gone through, universities are going to have this allotted number, Power Fours, $20.5 million this year. It will continue to go up. Then there's NIL, and they're going to have to prove that it's worth it. So any money they raise through private equity is going to go toward their traditional fundraising, and where they're going to be able to add to their facilities and pay their coaches and do things in that nature.
So I get that, but what is the person investing? Equity would mean I own something. What is the tangible ownership of Boise State University athletics?
I don't think there's any true tangible ownership. I think it's wealthy people, wealthy companies who want to be involved in sports, get the perks of being an owner of a team, and get to travel with the team, go to the big events, brag to your colleagues and your friends on the golf course that, hey, I'm a part owner of this, or I'm an investor in this entity. And so it's more of that. Now, will it be sellable that you'll be able to say that the value was 10 million, it's now 20 million. Right. I put in X dollars, I've doubled my money, and now the next line of people that want to get involved in this are going to do it. So it's going to be years down the road to see if there's any true value in this, where it's sellable, that someone else is going to want it. But it's just more money in this powerful entity. And I've said it on this show and on other shows, I believe by 2030, college football will be removed from the university. It will be its own separate entity, which removes Title IX issues.
Sure.
And it will be its own money-making machine that doesn't have to share their wealth with the other sports involved.
What's interesting to me is when you deal with equity in anything, anybody buys something, well, you're having a third party come in and value it, right? Well, here's what we think it values at. Doesn't mean it's right. The market, in a lot of cases, can value things. You can value your home based on comps in the market. When it's private equity getting involved in college football athletics, Boise State could say, we think based on the numbers we've run, here's what we generate, here's what we think it's worth, and they can create a number. To your point, well, then Georgia, Bama, Clemson, Florida State could say, well, we're 30 times the value there. Here's what you're getting. And it's fun money. To your point, you're going to get the suite, you're going to get the travel, you're going to get the on-field experiences. Can you sell that later? We're going to tell you can. I just don't know if it's physically possible.
Yeah, and I don't know if these people really care
right.
if you can sell it again. Right. They get to be part of something that they...
It's the old boosters now getting to do it on the level.
Correct. Yeah. And it's investment companies, so they can sell it off to private people who want to be involved. They can sell up shares and say, part of your share entitles you to this. The interesting thing is going to be getting back to not just the equity, is how this NIL space is going to change. Because in theory, we can always say a player is overpaid. But if someone's willing to pay it,
well, the market determines.
That's the market.
Yep.
However, the true name, image, and likeness, if you're giving a high school senior who has 5 followers on his Instagram and 5 on his Twitter, here's $1 million to come to University X. Well, the layman could say that's a booster payment, that is overpayment. Will Deloitte say that? We'll see. It'll be very interesting to see what it is and how it plays out.
All I can think is in professional sports, if the same thing happened, well, this guy's only hit 240, so you're getting overpaid. Well, sorry, the market is what the market is. It's never been about what you've truly accomplished. It's about your next, and this is what the money is, and then I wonder if that'll happen.
And I have to share with you on this. I advise professional athletes, but now I advise a lot of college athletes who are going through this portal process. And, the first thing that I talk to with the player, and in 99 out of 100 times, I insist that the parents are involved in this, especially if the parents are involved in the athlete's life, that what are you trying to get out of this? Because if you're in a sport that is a non-professional sport, i.e. softball, volleyball,
sure.
Think there
Olympic
may be some
sports more than
correct. Then your degree is important. And you have to start thinking about those things. And making as much money as you can in the portal is a big deal, because there is no sports money 4 or 5 years from now. If you're playing baseball, football, basketball, and you are one of the chosen, and again, the pyramid gets smaller and smaller, that you're really going to make it, and make it where you're a vested veteran in any sport, you have to now say, if I'm not going on that path, how do I maximize my earning potential now? And how do I make sure I get my degree? Right. And that's the other thing that people fail to realize. When you see guys transferring after their sophomore year, or girls after their sophomore year, unless they have that 5th year, it is next to impossible to graduate on time. And if you don't graduate on time, that additional year or years is on your dime.
Sure.
So people have to take that into consideration as they're going through this process of school, money, playing, and future.
All right, let's talk about NFL mandatory OTAs. Mini camps have concluded for the week. There are actual tangible football things involved, but for the purposes of our show, we talk about the business angle of this. Hadley, this is one of the last negotiating points of the season where you can say Trey Hendrickson of the Bengals, I'm not showing up. All right, Trey, you're going to get fined $17,000 for day 1. You're not there day 2, it's another $35,000. Day 3, it's $52,000. So it's $100,000 plus. But in Trey Hendrickson and his agent's mind, we're trying to negotiate a 8-figure extension with guaranteed money up front. So the $100,000, be damned. We need to show again that we're not happy. So you saw that in his case. But you also saw it with Shamar Stewart, speaking of the Bengals, their rookie pass rusher from Texas A&M, who still doesn't have a deal done and now is starting to get chippy publicly with what he's saying. So give me your best gauge on first Shamar Stewart, what's happening there.
All right, well, first of all, two totally separate stories. However, same team. And the Bengals are notorious. We've said it time and time again on shows throughout the years, you and I, in discussing NFL teams and hard to deal with. They are very old school, they are very family oriented, and they're not going with the times. So we'll talk about Shamar Stewart. He is not under contract, so he is not getting fined. So he is choosing not to sign his contract or the letter of protection. And the reason why he's doing this is it's been reported, and I don't have firsthand knowledge, but I've read it and spoke to other people within the industry, that in the past, the last couple of years, they have put language in there for their first round draft choices that he'd be okay to sign. They have now since wanted to change that language that offers less guaranteed protection based upon injuries, based upon future guarantees. And so that's kind of the general understanding. Why they've changed that, and they've already set the tone that this is what they've done for 2 straight years. It's very hard for a team, and teams do this all the time, anytime you negotiate. And we've done it, we've seen it plenty times where we want this. And they come back and say, well, if you look at our history, we've not done that. Well, so the odds of us getting it are probably pretty small. So let's focus on the things we can get for our client. And in this case, he has a valid argument because they have done it, not just one-off, they've done it for 2 straight years. So he has a valid argument. They're going to come to terms. It will work out in the player's favor. They will give in. Now let's turn the page to Trey Hendrickson. He is a seasoned veteran who's one of the best in the business. He's scheduled to make $15 million this year. Vastly underpaid for his position.
Based on the market, sure.
Based upon the market. Yeah. Very underpaid. These fines that are given in the offseason, unlike during regular training camp, even though they're fined, the team could rescind it.
Okay.
And so they're not actually taking that money out yet. And so it's up to the team to decide how much. That's the maximum they could take out, is roughly $104,000. Usually you come to terms, and no matter what the new terms are, they rescind that. This money will never go to the Bengals. The hope is, like you said, Trey Hendrickson only has so many times to prove his point. And so this is one of the last times. After this mandatory, most teams are off for the next month.
Correct. And then it's training camp at the end of July.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then there's some real, and you hope things develop between now and then, and he may show up and participate, but not participate. Right. So there's a lot of moving parts, but this is the last stance you can take. And so it's important. Now you can take another player, James Cook, who's shown up to nothing.
Yeah.
All of a sudden is showing up and participating, not just being there. He's going through all the team drills and all the team activities and meetings. And I think their thought is, again, don't have the firsthand knowledge of this, but reading the tea leaves, that their negotiating ploys, the way they've handled stuff, hasn't gone the way they'd hoped. So they're trying to change the context, change the attitude of both the team and the community to say, hey, you know what I've done maybe is not the right thing. I'm now going to change it. I'm going to be that team guy. I'm going to say all the right things.
Sounds great unless you get hurt.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And that's the chance you take, obviously. And if he's smart, being in the last year of his deal, he's added insurance, he's done protections. Now that they actually have an offer on the table, you can now take that offer, take it to a Lloyd's of London type policy for loss of value, because there's a true market. You can't say, I think I'm worth this, and this is what my stats say. But now we actually have an offer on the table. So at the minimum, there's a floor to say, here's my value. I can do a loss of income value if I get injured. So he can add some protection to himself to make sure that if that happens, God forbid, he's protected.
All right, coming up, we'll talk about a couple of deals that were done this week, including Nick Chubb has got a new home. Aaron Rodgers has a new deal in place. And in the NBA, it's all about the ratings game. And Adam Silver, the commissioner, is trying to clean up the mess. We'll talk about it next. All right, we continue with this episode of Deals and Deadlines with Hadley. I'm Matt. Again, I'll remind you guys, please subscribe to the pod wherever you're listening. Just go ahead and hit the subscribe button now. New episodes drop each and every Friday, and you can always watch on our 680 The Fan YouTube channel. What a joy that is. All right, before we talk about
Besides our parents, you think anyone else is watching this?
Yeah, I've seen the numbers on this. Huge. People are watching at the dinner table like it's Ed Sullivan in the 50s. So before we talk about the NBA and the ratings game, Hadley, I want to talk to you about a couple of deals that were done this week. The Texans have signed former Browns running back Nick Chubb, one of our favorites around these parts in Atlanta and Georgia, just watching him from high school to college and to the NFL. It's heartbreaking with the injuries, but I'm glad to see him get another opportunity. So the deal is a 1-year, $2.5 million deal that can be worth up to $5 million. Your friend, I'm sure, in the industry, Todd France, helped negotiate that. Is that kind of what you saw based on where he is with his career and the injuries, that will give you a little, see if you can earn some more?
Yeah, and he gets it. And the goal is obviously for him to prove that he's worth it. And if he does it extremely well, maybe they go into an extension, add another year or two to it. But it gives him a true opportunity, a team that is on the rise, a team that has a need to add someone like him and his skill set. The cost analysis is very minimal in the big picture, that if it doesn't work out, it's okay. I've not seen the final contract to see if there's any injury protection in there, if there's any split language in there, or how much the full guarantee is of the $2.5 million. So I've only can report what I've read. But, it'll be interesting to see how that's broken down. If there is some injury protection that Nick Caserio put in there with the Texans, and, obviously gives Nick the opportunity to earn some additional money if he and the team reach certain plateaus.
All right, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers, who finally got his deal done with the Steelers. There had been some thought that maybe this was wink agreed to a long ago, but now they've gotten it done. The funniest part about this, Aaron, I guess, and I didn't realize this, has now made the most money of any NFL player based on contractual terms in history, earning over $380 million. So this deal wasn't going to be huge, but it's not exactly working for pennies. He'll make a $13.6 million base salary with an incentive package, Hadley, that could pay him almost $6 million more, and then an additional $1.5 million if he wins MVP. So if he hits every milestone, the total deal would max out at about $19.5 million. It's not going to get there, but if it did, that would make him the 21st highest paid quarterback in the NFL, behind, for instance, Justin Fields at $20 million. So where do you think that contract kind of fit? Is that in the neighborhood? And is it Aaron admitting, I probably could fight for more, but at this point I want to play, I want to make money and give them an opportunity to do other things?
Yeah, I think Aaron is now in the twilight of his career. He understands that. He is playing because he loves the game and wants to be paid something. We can just talk about Tom Brady did the same thing in his heyday. Yep. I mean, he didn't have to become the highest paid quarterback. There were plenty of quarterbacks in front of him. He liked the situation. He knew he was making money, $300+ million. He's not worried for the next paycheck. I think this deal was done many months ago. I don't think it was kind of a surprise. I don't think there were even negotiations recently. I think it was all done. Here's the number. Let's agree on it. It's a great situation. We'll give you your time to do what you have to do, and you'll come to the mandatory OTA. Then you'll have the month to continue to work on the playbook. So when you report for training camp, in July, August, you're ready to go. $13 million guaranteed money, great money for Aaron. If he makes the $20 million, good for him. He's doing it because he wants to play. He wants to win. He's not looking at how he's compared to Dak Prescott or Justin Fields or
he's well beyond that
matter. He wants to win. Pittsburgh is a great city to play for. If he could keep it together, stay healthy, keep it together, meaning not let his emotions take over and kind of cry sometimes and point fingers, and they can compete in that division, which is not an easy division to compete in.
Well, you got the Ravens there, who are obviously very good. You've got, it's the depth in that division is one thing, and I also question, it's weird that they made the George Pickens decisions. George's can be a little weird, but I'm looking at the weapons right now around Aaron, and he's always big on adding his guys. There might be a few of his former guys, but as currently constructed, Aaron had a good year last year, but he's not the Aaron of old where he could just take middle of the pack players to make them great. So I wonder what they're going to do.
Yeah, and we don't know what went on internally, but they may have moved on with George because Aaron didn't want the headache. He may have been part of that. Like, hey, I'm coming here. I'll work with your dollars.
Right.
I'll work with your scheme. I don't want this 20-something-year-old headache in this locker room. And he's been a headache. So it's not the talent. It's just the selfishness and the way he talks to the public. So that may have been part of it, or it may be unrelated that they decided, no matter who the quarterback is, we need to move on from it. Mike Tomlin, Omar Khan, those guys know what they're doing. It's a great history, great legacy, and I believe in Pittsburgh always. I think they're always going to be a competitive team. They play that blue-collar game. They're going to run a lot. It's going to bode well for Aaron as far as physicality. They're not going to count on him throwing it 50 times a game to win games. If they do, he can do it, assuming he's healthy.
Well, the fun part is he gets to work with Arthur Smith. So those two can butt some heads, which will be interesting for the rest of us.
Listen,
sure.
I think Arthur is a great offensive mind. I don't think he was a good head coach, and I don't know if he'll ever be a good head coach.
There are some external things with him that he just needs to get past. Calling plays, fine. And I agree with you. Correct. Okay, so let's talk about the NBA. NBA Finals continues, and it's a shame that it's not been as much about on the court, which this tends to happen when you don't have two. In college football, we would call them blue bloods, right? In the NBA, we would call them brands. We don't have Lakers, Celtics. We have OKC, and we have Indiana. And a lot of the talk is about the ratings, which I know the fan gets lost in the weeds with the ratings stuff, but the ratings is a barometer of just interest in the series. The general public watches what they're interested in. And game 1 and 2 of the NBA Finals, we're recording this on Thursday, so we don't have game 3 numbers. Some of the lowest ratings we've seen in years, the lowest since the COVID-affected finals in 2020. Now, Adam Silver, as we tend to do, we're going to spin. He said game 1 and 2, the highest rated TV programs in June so far, at the end of May in game 1. So if you put it in context, it's fine. You can do it that way. Hadley, this comes back to what you and I have talked about. The NFL is above worrying about market size. They don't have to do it. The NBA does. There's no good answer to, as good as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is and Tyrese Halliburton, that the general public is not diving into the series. What does the NBA do? I don't think you do anything. I don't think there's an answer to it.
I don't know why Adam Silver even discusses this. They just signed, talk about overpaid, a blockbuster TV deal based upon bad ratings that have only been going down in the last recent years. It doesn't matter if the ratings are high or low. The deal's in place for the next 10 years.
Sure.
So I don't know why he's so concerned about that. I think he should focus on the positives. They've got the young MVP who's in it. They've got Indiana that's got great young players, fans behind them. It's a great matchup, actually. It's just not nationally known, right? It's not the national brands. I would focus more on the success of the things, of the teams, look at the positive, and build from that, and not be so worried about the ratings.
I agree. In his defense, when he's asked the question, and I've got to have a prepared answer as a commissioner, and I don't want to bumble and stumble, and you bring up a great point about the TV deal, I'm going to say, we're the highest rated thing on TV right now. This is why you're paying the price. Now, compared to other sports, fine, we can have that discussion. Compared to years past in our own league, have the discussion. We're the highest rated thing on TV right now. You're damn right that's why we're getting the money. So his point of view is I'm going to spin it to make our partners believe and realize this is what you're paying for. Right?
Well,
whether it's true or not doesn't matter.
We're the most watched podcast in the studio.
That's exactly right
at
now.
At this time. Right? Not at all other times, at this time. So it is the way you spend
Yes.
it. But I think
I get your point, though.
He can answer the question without going into these wild things about we're the highest rated here. I wouldn't say, hey, we just did our new deal, because that's not good for your new partners to say that when our ratings are going down. But they knew their ratings were going down. They're looking at the upside of we've got young stars in these markets. We've got a young Cooper Flagg coming into the league. There's excitement. There's
it's a great time, right?
There's the draft coming up. There's a lot of cool things going on. Basketball just isn't what it once was. It may never be there again. And so it's just something that Adam Silver has to realize. He has to answer these questions, obviously, but I don't think he's too concerned about it because they just signed this big deal.
I would guess the only concern is we are starting to age out of a group that you can argue is as successful a group from a business standpoint from LeBron and KD and Steph and some older guys. So positioning this stuff always becomes important. And on that note, Michael Jordan's getting back into the NBA from a TV standpoint. Once the owner of the Charlotte Bobcats, and we know the playing career. A story came out from Front Office Sports that Michael is rumored to be making $40 million annually to join the NBA on NBC broadcast, which I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe it's 20 million, maybe it's 22. You always want to position anything you want. But Front Office Sports said that number's not inaccurate. They've heard that number and it's been backed up. I've asked you this many times about Troy Aikman, Joe Buck, Al Michaels. How do you get an ROI on this? And we could say we talk about it. It's in the discussion point, but that's not ROI.
Those people are talented. Let's not use Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. Let's use Tom Brady.
Okay.
Where they're paying him all this kind of money, and Michael Jordan all this kind of money. Let's talk about Michael Jordan. I think what you said earlier is a reasoning why they're doing this is because they're aging out of certain demographics that used to watch the NBA. And people like my generation who grew up watching Michael Jordan, if he's doing something that's interesting, I may tend to watch it where no matter what the context is, the fact that he's doing it, I may tend to watch it. You may be the same way, where we would never think of watching it because the person broadcasting. And that's kind of what I think they did with Tom Brady. Are they going to get the actual return on investments? Are the ratings going that much higher by these people broadcasting? No. But it adds to the value of the big picture of it. It's their investment in it. And I believe that the networks look at Michael Jordan as the greatest player of all time. I believe that.
Sure.
And to have him part of their broadcasting in any capacity is only going to add eyes to it.
I would agree. But that only lasts so long when we watched Brady and went, well, he's very good at it, right? So you got the pop. And when I say ROI, you're right. This is about when you add Joe Buck and Troy Aikman to Monday Night Football, you're trying to build your brand of it and making it bigger. So I get all that. But I can't sell it for more. I cannot go to Coca-Cola and I don't think, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you go to Coca-Cola and say, I've got Michael Jordan doing 2 minutes on pregame. It's going to cost you an extra 7 figures. Maybe you do get that. I just have a hard time understanding.
Think about it. You're now in a boardroom and you're selling this investment to people that are part of your company and they're questioning the investment. And then you throw in, oh, and by the way, we now have Michael Jordan.
And their eyes get big.
Their eyes get big. Gets back to Boise State having these investors in there. It's about being part of something that's big. And so if you can be part of Michael Jordan, or if Michael Jordan shows up to a corporate event now on behalf of the network, it's great for other avenues and other channels to make money. So these big companies that have billions of dollars to spend 20, 30, 40 million dollars on a celebrity, on an entertainer, yeah, it's costing them money, but it may be doing some damage control with some of the naysayers within the company because they get to rub elbows with these celebrities.
Well, NBC will have Michael on everything. Every promo, everything.
Oh, yeah, he'll do a filming where he'll do a lot of stuff. He won't be at a lot of events, but he'll spend a couple of days to a week doing so many different ads and so many things that they will use time and time again. Okay, so coming up, I want to talk about the business of adding a new sport to a community because it's not new to Atlanta, but hockey could be on its way back again. How close is it? What's the business angle of it? We'll talk about it next. All righty, we continue with this episode of Deals and Deadlines with Hadley. I'm Matt. Thanks so much for making this a part of your day. Remember, you can download this pod, subscribe at any podcast platform. New episodes drop each and every Friday. All right, Hadley, so a couple of days back, and I'll read from Maria Martin's Twitter on 11 Alive. Very big day for fans of hockey in the state of Georgia in the city of Atlanta. And for those who don't remember the backstory, we've had 2 professional hockey teams. We had the Atlanta Flames in the late 70s, which the Cousins family owned them back then. They had some real estate issues. They had to sell off. So the hockey team ended up moving to Calgary. Then we got a second lifeline with the Atlanta Thrashers. And if this wasn't a family podcast, I would call it what it was. It was an S show from a management and a ownership standpoint with the Atlanta Spirit Group. So that didn't work. Well, maybe the third time's going to be the charm. Because earlier in the week, Vernon Krause's project, and Vernon's the Forsyth County Commissioner, his project called The Gathering got a green light. Everything was voted in approval to now present something to the NHL if they're interested in expanding, that now Krause has a fully funded, backed project